heard me referring to learning outcomes as well. And essentially learning outcomes and the graduate attributes are one and the same. The question was, what is the difference really? And when I talk about outcomes assessment, remember I talked about the need for students to have the 12 attributes, which correspond primarily with what Washington Accord countries are requiring. So, and I referred to them as learning outcomes, but also graduate attributes. So the attributes are, in fact, making reference to those graduate attributes, and those are the 12, the knowledge base, the problem analysis, investigation, design, etc., that were mentioned in the presentation under graduate attributes. The second question refers to over-specialization and the need to avoid it. And again, I mentioned in my presentation that our criteria is designed to provide flexibility in enabling institutions to create courses and at the same time perhaps to avoid over-specialization. And really what I meant there, I guess, is what we attempt to do for our engineering students, and I'm not a professor, I'm not from academia, but the intent is to provide a broad level of education for engineers so that engineers have a very strong appreciation of the natural sciences, the engineering sciences, and engineering design in their discipline, but also an appreciation of their limitations in terms of doing engineering outside of their area of expertise. And so there is a focus on exposing engineers to other disciplines of engineering, if you will, and not try to constrict the program so that it's too focused. And really that's what I mean by perhaps over-specialization, is just being very, very tunnel vision as opposed to providing the student with a broader appreciation of engineering. The third question relates to the process that undergraduates must follow to become professional engineers. Again, the Accreditation Board is simply interested in assuring that the quality of engineering education is maintained and is at a high standard. That being said, once the engineering student graduates from an accredited program, that individual is well on their way to becoming licensed, because that individual is not required to be tested or write exams that might be imposed by licensing agencies. And so the process is one that roughly takes, after graduation, approximately 4 years. And during the period, upon graduation, the engineering student would go to work for a company. The individual would have to create or complete a logbook in which the individual would describe the types of engineering functions he or she performed during the course of the year. And that logbook would have to be authorized or signed off by a professional engineer to swear, if you will, that yes, this is what this individual did. And that logbook then gets presented to the licensing agency, who then makes a determination whether or not that individual should receive a licensure within that jurisdiction. And as I say, that process can take up to 4 years. When I graduated many years ago, it was 2 years. It's more onerous now for some of the new students, but it's an extensive process. The next question involves accreditation at the engineering level above the bachelor's degree. Again, you heard in my presentation, the Accreditation Board only accredits undergraduate engineering programs or bachelor's degree programs. There's no accreditation authority for master's degrees or PhDs. And the poser of the question is saying, do you believe that those programs should be validated? I guess the honest answer would be, I really don't have an opinion on that. Again, I'm not familiar with the, in detail, again, not coming from the academic world, the requirements for a PhD program or a master's degree in engineering, but clearly industry or the licensing agencies within Canada have felt that perhaps it's not necessary to require licensing at a level beyond the undergraduate degree. The next question pertains to the number of students each agency attends, and I'm interpreting that to mean sort of what are the size of our engineering programs or the universities that our engineering programs attend. I mentioned that we have 12 licensing agencies. We're 35 million people. Our border is 8,000 kilometers long with the United States. We're spread in a very large area. The area of Canada is about 13 times the area of Costa Rica. And so our universities, there's not many. You heard me say that we accredit programs in 43 institutions. Now these are 43 institutions where engineering programs are offered. Those institutions would range in size from perhaps as little as maybe 5,000 students to as many as 30 or 35,000 students in total. The engineering programs themselves, you heard me mention that we have roughly 55,000 engineering students enrolled in undergraduate in 43 institutions. So we're talking in terms of hundreds of students in engineering programs within those 43 university engineering programs. So not large numbers. The next question deals with, has government defined goals for universities according to the assessment? If the question here is, does the government have any influence in our accreditation criteria? The answer is no. The criteria is set by ourselves, and it comes primarily in response of industry responses. For example, again, I will go back to my experience when I graduated. The focus primarily was on technical expertise. At the time, they didn't matter whether I could read or write. And so now we have communication is becoming much more of a requirement. More focus is given to the complementary studies, and, you know, and that sort of thing. So the response or their criteria changes primarily are coming from what industry wants from their graduate students, and primarily that's why we're into the outcomes assessment, because this is what industry is telling we want. These are the qualities we want in the engineering graduates. So government has very little role in certainly in the criteria. In terms of what courses should be taught, again, they don't play a strong role in dictating what universities do. Universities are pretty much autonomous, and again are responding simply to the needs of society and the needs of industry, and creating engineering programs to fill the voids that might exist for industry. That being said, I'll give you one example where I'm not aware that government intervened directly, but I suspect they persuaded the institutions. We have one particular province. It's a relatively small province, maybe 1 million or 2 million people. It has 2 universities. It receives government funding from both universities. Receive government funding. So I accredited one of those institutions, and they had a slate of engineering programs. And I was advised, because industry because the province was small, the government's resources were limited, they did not want the second institution providing the same engineering courses. So what you would find at the second institution was they offered programs that responded to industry but did not replicate or duplicate what was being taught at the other institution. Again, because of the size, and so government did have a say, but generally speaking, the interference by government is as I understand it, does not happen very often. And before I go, I want to thank the folks that are doing the simultaneous translation. I know you're here for me. Thank you.